Welcome to food plot season. On this week's episode, I'm going to be talking about plot screen, where you use it, how you use it, why you use it, when you use it, everything you want to know about plot screen. And it really comes back to the bigger subject of why you want to screen off certain parts of your hunting area. There's a number of reasons why you'd want to do that. First off, in the project I'm going to be working on today, I need to screen an area so that I can sneak out of that spot without the deer that are out in the food plot seeing me leave. Anytime you're hunting a spot where the deer are going to be towards the end of the day, you need to be able to sneak out of there without bumping into those deer. Because every time you bump them or alert them, they're going to be a little bit harder to hunt in that area in the future. Another reason you would want to use something like plot screen is to actually screen the deer from being seen by somebody from the outside. Whether it's in a neighborhood or near a road or something like that, the deer are going to feel a lot more pressured or a lot more vulnerable if they know that they're visible. As long as they're screened off, they can't see us. I guess they assume that we can't see them. They feel a lot more comfortable. A lot of times they'll come out before daylight or before the end of daylight in those types of areas rather than waiting until nighttime to come out. An additional reason would be to create funnels. We've used these types of cover types before in order to create like a travel corridor from one block of cover to another block of cover. The deer like to orient themselves to something when they travel, whether it's a brushy fence line, maybe it's a draw or a swale that runs through a field, anything in the terrain or in the cover that gives them just that little extra sense of security. They're going to orient to that when they're traveling. So you can actually create travel corridors across open areas using something like the plot screen. If you plant a big enough block, you can actually create habitat, and that's probably going to be the lowest priority reason why you would plant this. But if you think about it, you've got some super thick cover that grows tall, so that people can't see in. It creates a sense of security for the deer. So in areas with very limited habitat, you can actually create cover, whether it's sanctuary cover or bedding cover, using something like the plot screen. Okay, so now a little bit more detail about today's project. I've got to plant a strip along the edge of this field. It's an area that has a lot of activity around it with the deer towards the end of the legal shooting time. So that makes it really challenging to get out of there without bumping any of them when I'm done hunting. So obviously, something that isolates my movement and hides it from the deer that are out feeding in the food plot is the key. The strip itself has to be at least 16 feet wide, and that's just to create enough structure so that if it's windy or if you get some snow on it, that you're still going to have enough there that the deer can't see through it easily. So think in terms of 16 feet. Most drills are in that neighborhood. If you're going to drill it in, a big 15 to 16 foot drill is pretty common. And if you're going to use, like in this case, I'm going to broadcast seed this, so the width is not dependent upon the equipment that I'm going to be using, but more just dependent upon how much available room I've got to plant the strip. So 16 feet is going to work perfect. I'll probably go a little bit wider. I'm probably going to be between 20 and 25 feet roughly. And you also want to make sure that you don't plant this too heavy. That's one mistake that people make, especially when they're broadcast seeding it, because they feel like, if a little bit is good, then a lot must be better. But that's not the way it works. The heavier you plant it, the smaller the plants actually get, and they don't reach their full height and they don't reach their full size. So you're actually stunting the plants, which works in the opposite of what you think is going to happen. Rather than having big, robust stalks and lots of cover to hide behind, you actually have these little stunted plants, and that's not going to work. And along that same line, plot screen is very nitrogen hungry. It likes nitrogen. A typical fertilizer rate might be 300 pounds per acre of triple 19, which you could get if you didn't use triple 19. If you used a mixture right from your co-op, you'd be aiming for that 57 units or higher of nitrogen to go with your plot screen. You can plant this stuff anytime from about the middle of May until about the middle of June or even a little bit later. And it does well under dry conditions. It actually uses less moisture than what corn requires, so it'll grow well even in dry times. So don't be afraid to plant it a little bit late. It's a warm season planting, so that means that the hotter it is, the better it grows. As long as there's some soil moisture, you're going to grow really fast. Your plot screen is going to get up really fast and do really well. So, I've planted it as late as the end of June before and actually had a decent stand of it. But the recommended timeline is from mid-May to mid-June in most parts of the country. Okay, my first step in today's project is to spray this area that I'm going to plant. And you never want to go into a spot without at least cleaning it up in some way. Normally it's still best to spray it with Roundup like I'm going to do today, and just go ahead and get everything killed off, and then when you go in to till it, you get a lot nicer, a lot cleaner seed bed. So spray it first, wait a few days, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to spread my fertilizer. I want to spread my fertilizer before I till it, because nitrogen is real volatile, and if you spread it on top of the ground after you've tilled, waiting for the rains to incorporate it, a lot of times the nitrogen itself will just evaporate up into the air and you won't have much to work with. So you want to go ahead and spread the nitrogen, spread your fertilizer, then till it in. And then in this case I'm going to be broadcast seeding. So I've got one of those bag broadcasters that hangs over my shoulder, and I just walk along and crank and spread the seed out. So go ahead and get that done ahead of the rains. The rain then comes and just beats that seed down into the tilled ground and creates the perfect amount of seed to soil contact, a nice shallow seed depth, and right away you get quick germination and a lot of growth. Okay, so next I'm going to do my spraying, and then over the course of the next few days I'll come back and do the rest of the steps of this project. We'll just bring it all to you right here on the food plot season. Well, that's it for part one of the episode on plot screens. I'm going to come back again in a week and talk a little bit more about the specifics of doing the actual work. Talked a lot today about why it's important and some of the hunting strategy aspects of having a screen like this. Talking about screening your entry and exit routes, creating travel routes for the deer, creating security cover, some important stuff if you're a deer hunter. So next week I'll wrap up this topic of screening, and we'll cover a couple of more additional food plot related topics on that episode. Well, I appreciate you joining me this week. We'll see you right back here again in another week for the next episode of the food plot season.